Friends, I have some news that is going to keep you awake tonight. I just saw something that completely overturned my understanding of the current global situation. While most of the world is still sleeping or scrolling through social media for entertainment, a massive geopolitical earthquake has just occurred at 40,000 feet. Donald Trump is currently on his special plane returning to the country, and he has dropped a heavy bomb that has sent shockwaves through the entire global intelligence community. This is not a drill. This is not the usual diplomatic rhetoric or the bluffing we are used to seeing in international politics. This time, the smell of gunpowder is real. Let us look at what actually happened in the last few hours. While Air Force One was crossing the Atlantic Ocean, Trump faced the cameras of the accompanying reporters. His expression was cold, almost like a judge delivering a final verdict. When he spoke about the massive fleet currently speeding towards the Persian Gulf, he did not use the standard military term like carrier strike group or task force. He used a word that is dripping with the blood of history. He used the word Armada. Friends, do you understand the weight of this word? Armada. This is a term that evokes images of conquest, of a definitive showdown, of a force that is not sent to negotiate, but to end a conflict once and for all. He looked straight into the lens and said, if that is the ending, then let it happen. This statement instantly detonated in the global intelligence circle because it signals a fundamental shift. We are no longer talking about a tug of war over a nuclear agreement. We are looking at a final game concerning the survival of a regime. All signs point to a core signal that the geostrategic pattern of the Middle East is likely to undergo a complete and fracture-like upheaval within the next 48 hours. Let us pull our vision back to the 48 hours leading up to this heart-stopping moment. What exactly happened to make the situation suddenly spiral out of control? Many people are still immersed in their old cognitive frameworks. They think this is just another case of the boy who cried wolf or another round of verbal spats. But friends, if you carefully analyze the movements of the U.S. military carrier strike groups and the abnormal silence from the Israeli side, you will discover a terrifying fact. A hunting net has already been spread open. Trump's remarks on the special plane are actually an ultimatum issued to the highest levels of Iran. Behind this ultimatum is top-secret intelligence mastered by American agencies regarding a major change that is about to occur within Tehran. You need to understand the timing here. Why now? Why use such heavy language at this specific moment? It is because the situation inside Iran has reached a critical boiling point. Current intelligence suggests that Iran is at an extremely dangerous critical point. The internal economic collapse has triggered weeks of turmoil. In the past, Tehran would attempt to divert internal conflicts by displaying a tough external posture. They would launch drills or use harsh rhetoric to rally the people. But this time, they have hit a steel plate. Trump's response was simple and brutal. He directly cut off all private communication channels. He did not send a diplomat. He sent an armada directly to their doorstep. This maritime force, which Trump calls the invincible Armada, is absolutely not there to simply pass through the Strait of Hormuz for a sightseeing tour. According to satellite images disclosed by foreign media, the configuration of this fleet is entirely up to combat standards. It is not just about showing the flag. The formation includes electronic warfare ships specifically designed to paralyze command systems and strategic bombers carrying Earth-penetrating munitions. Friends, this configuration means only one thing. If they are going to make a move, it will be a decapitation-level surgical strike. It will be clean, fast, and absolute. There will be no dragging of feet. Why are these next 48 hours so crucial? Why is everyone holding their breath? Because according to a summary of intelligence from multiple parties, the hardliners inside Iran have been pushed to the edge where they have to act. They are not only facing the pressure of Mount Tai from the outside, but are also facing a vacuum crisis of internal power. Trump's statement on the plane is actually telling the whole world that the United States is ready to take over the post-Iran era. This is a very terrifying signal. Think about the logic here. In the past, although the United States imposed sanctions, the bottom line was always that they did not seek regime change. They only wanted to limit nuclear capabilities or stop specific actions. But this time, Trump's words reveal a meaning of pushing the boat with the current. It seems that as long as Tehran dares to cross that red line, the United States will not hesitate to give it a push from the outside and let this crumbling building collapse completely. We must understand Trump's war logic. It is the logic of a businessman. He does not like long-term wars that drag on like a quagmire. He hates getting stuck in the mud. What he likes is the thunderous method that settles the final decision with one hammer blow. Look back at his operations in his previous term. Whether it was the targeted elimination of Soleimani or the facilitation of the Abraham Accords, his style has always been to bypass tedious diplomatic rhetoric and directly hit the opponent's pain points. This time, he obviously believes that Iran's pain points have been completely exposed. Through the economic strangulation in the early stage, Iran's oil exports have been compressed to the limit. Financial exhaustion has led to a linear decline in their control over the army and their proxy agents. At this time, the heavy army pressing down on the border is not necessarily for a full-scale invasion like we saw in Iraq. It is there to create the last straw that crushes the camel. It is about applying maximum pressure at the precise moment of maximum weakness. The words spoken on the special plane were actually also spoken for the ears of allies. The Israeli side has obviously obtained some kind of tacit permission or even encouragement. The tough stance of the Netanyahu government recently is perfectly synchronized with the mobilization rhythm of the U.S. military. Trump's theory of the ending can be interpreted as the United States no longer blocking Israel from taking action. It might even be that the U.S. military is responsible for sweeping the battlefield and providing strategic cover. For Tehran, this is the nightmare within a nightmare. In the past, they could use the differences between the United States and Israel to survive in the cracks. They could play one against the other. But now these two allies seem to have reached an unprecedented tacit understanding. That understanding is to completely eliminate the biggest source of instability in the Middle East. In the countdown of these 48 hours, we must not only look at the fleet on the sea, we must also look at the movements on the streets of Tehran. Trump's strategy is very poisonous and very clever. He is using strong external military pressure to force the Iranian authorities to transfer the elite forces originally used to suppress internal dissent to the border to guard against the U.S. military. This creates an internal void. It gives huge space to the resistance forces within the country. This is a typical tactic of surrounding the division, but leaving a gap. It looks like a military encirclement, but it is actually a political attack on the heart. When he lightly mentioned the phrase witnessing history on the special plane, it was extremely likely that he was hinting at some kind of irreversible political avalanche that is about to erupt inside Iran. He knows something we don't. He sees the cracks in the foundation that are invisible to the naked eye. Let us dissect the deterrence of this armada from the perspective of military technology. Friends, do not imagine the kind of clumsy troops from decades ago that required large-scale landings like D-Day. This is a highly informatized and intelligent strike force. The U.S. military's F-35C stealth carrier-based aircraft and nuclear submarines carrying Tomahawk cruise missiles have the ability to destroy the core command center and nuclear facilities of Iran before their air defense system can even react. Why does Trump dare to be so high-profile on the plane? Why is he so confident? It is because he holds the bottom card in his hand. The various new hypersonic weapons and electronic warfare systems of the U.S. military have already formed a generational advantage over Iran's old Russian-made air defense systems. This is not a contest between equal forces. This is a dimensionality reduction strike that is completely asymmetrical in technology. It is like an adult fighting a toddler. The outcome is decided before the first shot is fired. The current situation is like a room filled with the smell of gas. Trump has just struck a match at the door. Although Iran's response is still tough, claiming that their fingers are on the trigger in the face of absolute disparity and strength, this kind of giant in language appears pale and powerless. They are now facing a dead end. If they retreat, the prestige of the regime will be swept away, and internal turmoil will swallow them instantly. If they fight back, That gives the U.S.-Israeli coalition the best excuse to act, and the ending could be destructive. Trump clearly saw through this dilemma. That is why he predicted the climax of this big drama in advance, with the posture of a victor on the plane returning home. In the next 48 hours, we will see a lot of information warfare and psychological warfare interwoven. The United States will continue to release intelligence and show the details of military deployment. They will use the media to render the atmosphere of the approaching doomsday. This itself is part of the strike. Trump is very good at using the media to amplify the power of the United States. Every speech he makes on the plane will be amplified into infinite pressure and transmitted to the decision-making layer in Tehran. This is extreme pressure on the psychological level. The purpose is to make the opponent make wrong judgments in fear, or simply collapse in fear. For other countries in the Middle East, these 48 hours are also a key moment to choose sides. Gulf countries like Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates are calling for calm on the surface. But privately, they are probably watching and even looking forward to the arrival of that ending. An Iran without a nuclear threat and without the ability to export revolution fits the long-term interests of the entire Sunni Arab world. Trump's action to some extent is also fulfilling his promise to his allies to reshape the security architecture of the Middle East. If we can really witness history within 48 hours, then the geopolitical map of the Middle East will be completely rewritten. The control of the United States in the region will reach a new peak. Trump's declaration on the special plane is not only a deterrent to Iran, but also a powerful reshuffling of global geopolitics. He is telling the world in the most straightforward way that when the United States is truly determined to solve a problem, its mobilization ability and decisiveness are amazing. These 48 hours might really become a textbook-level case. It will show how a superpower uses a combination of military, economic, and psychological tactics to achieve huge strategic goals without shedding blood or at a very small cost. When we hold our breath and wait for the passing of these 48 hours, do not be confused by the calmness on the surface. Beneath the water, nuclear submarines are sailing silently. Satellites are changing orbits at high frequency. Cyber warfare units have long launched a desperate struggle in the virtual space. That sentence from Trump might not be wild talk, but an execution order that has already taken effect. The wheels of history often accelerate inadvertently. This time, the driver stepped on the gas pedal and turned the steering wheel in a direction that is unknown, but destined to be violent. In this time window, every decision made by Tehran is a matter of life and death. They might pin their hopes on the mediation of the international community. But in the face of Trump's style of America first, and his disregard for conventional diplomatic frameworks, traditional mediation mechanisms are basically ineffective. European allies are worried, but facing the established deployment of the U.S. military, they can only express concern verbally. In reality, they are unable to stop the chariot from marching. Russia supports Iran verbally, but Moscow is deep in its own geopolitical quagmire. The substantial help it can provide is minimal. Iran is now truly isolated and helpless, facing the muzzle of the world's strongest military machine. Trump's calculations are very precise. If Iran admits defeat, returns to the negotiating table, and accepts terms that are 10 times harsher than before, that is his huge diplomatic victory. He can show off that peace is won through strength. If Iran resists and conflict erupts, the U.S. military will take advantage of the situation to eradicate this malignant tumor that has plagued U.S. strategy in the Middle East for a long time. This would also be an unworldly achievement during his term. No matter which side the coin lands on, Trump feels that he has won for sure. This is why he can announce the ending so easily and confidently on the plane. This confidence is not blind. It is based on a precise calculation of the comparison of strengths between the two sides and the current international situation. Iran's bottom cards are running out. The missile forces they are proud of have doubtful effectiveness in front of the U.S. military's strict anti-missile network. The proxy armed forces they rely on have suffered heavy blows from Israel in the past year, and their vitality has been greatly damaged. The current Iran is like a warrior stripped of his armor, facing a fully armed modern army. Trump spotted this timing. It is exactly the moment when the opponent is weakest, most chaotic, and most prone to collapse. He launched a fatal blow. The tension of these 48 hours may even exceed that of the Cuban Missile Crisis back in the day. Because back then, it was a rational game between two superpowers. Now, it is a non-rational struggle where one side has absolute advantage and the other is in desperation. People in desperation can do anything. This is the only variable. But Trump seems not to be worried about this variable. Or perhaps he has already prepared a plan to deal with the worst-case scenario, that Armada has not only spears, but also shields. It is enough to intercept any desperate strike that Iran might launch. As the special plane lands and Trump returns to the White House, this big drama will enter its real climax. The instructions have been issued. The chess pieces have fallen into place. The eyes of the whole world are focused on the blue but murderous waters of the Persian Gulf. 48 hours is just 2 days and nights for ordinary people. But for the history of the Middle East and for the country of Iran, it may be the dividing line between past and future. What we are witnessing might be the curtain call of an era and the opening of a new era dominated by Trump-style power logic. In the eye of this storm, the speed of information transmission is faster than missiles. Social media is full of all kinds of news that is hard to distinguish between true and false. But one thing is certain. The U.S. military war machine has finished preheating and can run at full load at any time. Trump's words were like injecting high-octane fuel into this machine. He does not need the long debate of Congress. He does not need the lengthy resolution of the United Nations. As the commander-in-chief, his will on the special plane is the highest action program. This direct display of power itself is a shock to modern international political rules. But in the face of strength, rules often appear pale. Let us continue to stare at the news ticker, stare at the real-time chart of the Strait of Hormuz. Every minute in the future may trigger news that changes the world. Trump has already pressed the start button on the special plane returning to the country. The numbers on the countdown board are jumping rapidly. Regardless of whether the ending is peaceful submission or a baptism of fire, these 48 hours will be recorded in history, because this is not just about the fate of Iran. It is about who is the real sword holder in this world where the law of the jungle is returning. The evolution of the situation may be more exciting than any script. Perhaps at the end of the 48 hours, we will see the prototype of a new order in the Middle East, or a rebirth on top of ruins. But in any case, Trump's sentence has frozen this moment. History is not waiting to happen. It is created by the strong. Now he is standing in front of the control stick of history, preparing to complete this last violent pull-up. If we focus our eyes on the specific tactical deployment of the U.S. military, you will find that the composition of this armada is extremely targeted. It is not just the simple deterrence of Nimitz-class or Ford-class aircraft carriers. The accompanying amphibious assault ships carry a large number of Marine Corps task forces. This is obviously prepared for control or special operations in the post-conflict phase. At the same time, at the U.S. air bases in the Middle East, the takeoff and landing frequency of tankers and early warning aircraft has reached combat levels. This shows that the U.S. military has built an all-weather, dead-angle-free monitoring and strike network. Any movement inside Iran, even the movement of a missile launcher, is under the real-time monitoring of the U.S. military. The reason Trump dares to say the word ending is that he possesses a battlefield perception ability from the perspective of God. This makes all the opponent's camouflage meaningless, and we cannot ignore the coordination of the economic front. Just as Trump spoke, the stick of sanctions from the U.S. Treasury Department was waved again. This time it is targeted at Iran's last underground financial network. This is not only a military containment, but also a complete cutoff of the lifeline of the Iranian state. Within 48 hours, Iran's currency exchange rate may experience a free-fall collapse. Soaring prices will further intensify social contradictions. Trump is using economic collapse to force political collapse. He is using internal turmoil to coordinate with external pressure. This kind of three-dimensional warfare is much more terrible than simple bombing. The current decision-making layer in Iran is probably sitting in an underground bunker, frowning at red warning maps. The cards in their hands are becoming fewer and fewer as they play them. Opposite them, Trump holds a royal flush. They might have thought about blocking the strait, but in front of the powerful escort formation of the U.S. military, this is tantamount to suicide. They might have thought about launching proxy attacks on U.S. military bases, but this will only invite retaliation 100 times over. Trump has blocked the road dead. There are only two paths left for them. Either raise the white flag and completely abandon nuclear ambitions and regional expansion, or meet their end in the fire. These 48 hours are also a big test for the global energy market. Fluctuations in oil prices will directly reflect the market's pricing of war risks. If the market smells the real smell of gunpowder, the surge in oil prices will be instantaneous. But strangely, the current market reaction is relatively restrained. This may mean that the capital crocodiles on Wall Street are also betting that Trump can subdue the enemy without fighting. Or they believe that the U.S. military's action will be a blitzkrieg that solves the battle in a very short time and will not cause long-term supply interruptions. The smell of capital is often the sharpest. Their reaction confirms the nature of Trump's action from the side. This is a surgical operation that has been precisely calculated to achieve political goals quickly, not an out-of-control full-scale war. Trump's words on the special plane are to some extent also a psychological hint. He is hinting to the Iranian people that their suffering stems from the stubbornness of the current regime. If the regime changes, the United States will bring prosperity. This is highly inflammatory political propaganda aimed at dividing the hearts of the Iranian people. When external high pressure resonates with the internal desire for change, the foundation of the regime will shake. This is the ending Trump most wants to see, not U.S. tanks driving into Tehran, but the Iranian people themselves pushing down the wall, with the United States just being the one handing over the hammer from outside the wall. As time goes on, every second of these 48 hours seems particularly long. Military analysts, diplomats, and intelligence personnel around the world are running wildly trying to catch the next signal. Trump's first action after returning to the country, his first meeting, and even his first social media dynamic will become the key passwords for interpreting the situation. But no matter the details, the general trend is set. The United States has lost patience. The abscess in the Middle East has reached the time when it must be squeezed. Trump chose to hold the knife himself, and this knife is currently hanging in midair with a chilling light. Whether we witness the peaceful transition of a regime or witness the destruction and rebirth of a high-tech war, the answer lies in these 48 hours that are about to run out. For Trump, this is an excellent stage for him to prove to the world again that America is back. For Iran, this is the last moment of life and death. The script of history has been written, waiting only for the actors to come on stage. And we, as the audience, can only hold our breath and wait to witness this great change unseen in a century unfold its most thrilling page in the turbulent waves of the Persian Gulf. Now, friends, I want to ask you a question. Do you think the market has priced in what happens if the Strait of Hormuz is actually closed for even a week? You might look at the oil price today and think everything is fine. But I am telling you, the smart money is moving into safe havens that you are not even looking at. Gold is not just a shiny metal. It is the only asset that doesn't rely on a government's promise. When the geopolitical tectonic plates shift like this, paper promises burn. If you want to understand how to protect your wealth in this era of disruption, you need to look beyond the headlines. The calm before the storm is the most dangerous time for your wallet, because that is when the trap is set. While everyone is watching the aircraft carriers, the real redistribution of wealth is happening in the financial plumbing that connects these nations. If Iran's oil goes offline, or if the U.S. sanctions hit the final kill switch on their banking sector, the ripples will hit your grocery bill, your gas pump, and your retirement account. This is why I always say you have to look at the world through the lens of interests, not just news. If you want to stay ahead of this curve and understand the deep logic behind these moves, make sure you are subscribed. We are going to be tracking this situation minute by minute. The world is changing fast, and the old rules do not apply anymore. Don't be the last one to know. Click that subscribe button, and let's witness history together. Stay awake, friends. The next 48 hours are going to be a wild ride.